Welcome back to the podcast. We're here with Benjamin Suggs from newpatientsflow.com, and Ben is the founder of Flow New Patient Marketing. They are an Atlanta-based marketing company that provides breakthrough marketing strategies for dental and medical practices. And Ben hosts a podcast called the Dental Flow Podcast. Now, Ben has helped hundreds of doctors start, purchase, or grow their practices with effective and affordable strategic marketing plans. He's helped his clients acquire thousands of new patients, producing $100 million plus in new patient production. So we're going to find out what we should stop doing, what we should start doing, the secrets to dental and medical practice marketing. Ben, glad to be speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robert. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. And so we introduced you a little bit, but in your own words, what is the breaking news? What has you so excited and focused and passionate?
You know, we really get excited. We've been doing this for about 12 years. And honestly, our client success is what gets us excited. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but really, when we see whether they're a brand new startup or they're an existing practice that just needs to grow, even when they end up selling to a larger DSO or something and we essentially lose them as a client, we're still thrilled for them to have that level of success. So what gets us excited is seeing their success. And that's why we really are always just trying to be forward looking, stay up to date on everything that's new. As you know, I'm sure digital marketing, which we specialize in, changes all the time. So we are just constantly trying to make sure that what we're doing for them is going to be the highest return on investment for their marketing dollars, given that 99% of our dental medical clients are small businesses, just like we are. So that's really what gets us excited, is to see their success.
Wonderful. So we figured out that highest return on investment. We figured out how to stand out and how to build a real business that is fun to create and work on and work at, and something that can sustain many different families or can potentially sell. And I've been really impressed. I think that when I was a kid, I feared and I hated the dentist. But even as a kid, I still remember all these decades later that they were really good at, they would have me, as I was waiting in that chair, they would have me write a postcard to myself for 6 months in the future. So that way, when I say I was 12 years old, when I was 13 years old, something would come in the mail from me and I would not even remember writing it. And I remember even back then, okay, there's something special about dentists especially and their marketing kind of tapping into some of these techniques that you don't see in some other industries. And then today I've been impressed with the dentists I go to and that my son goes to. I'm just impressed with their marketing, their social media presence. They get you in and out. They have a recurring payment model. The offices are clean. It seems to me like times really have changed, at least in the dentists I go to. And have you seen this? Does it seem like the past 10 years, 5 years especially, it's
100%.
Dentists in particular, how they've really got their marketing dialed in?
For sure. And definitely in the time I've been doing this, I feel like that's kind of when this shift started. You think about when you were a kid and you went to the dentist's office, it was often the very medical office that you walked into with the glass door divider that they would open up to talk to you and they close it as soon as they were done. And now when you walk into a lot of these more modern dental practices, it's like walking into a Starbucks. It has a great feel, a great vibe. Everybody is smiling and friendly. And you really, talking about the postcard there, you hit the nail on the head for dentists because their business is all about recurring business. Our job is to help them get that patient in that first time, but then their job is to make that patient keep coming back. And I feel like the experience that you give people, we've had practices that were able to shift from people looking at it as this negative part of their day that they had to go to the dentist and they were afraid of it, to now looking at it as this oasis where they get a break from everyday life. They go in, they're comfortable, they get warm blankets, they have TV, they can watch Netflix movies above them when they're laying back in the chair. I think that dentists have done a really good job of upping their patient experience game to keep people coming back and to keep these experiences really, really positive. And you see that in reviews, where patients just talk about how just pleasant it is to go there for an hour and a half or however much time they're there. So I think they've done a great job of that. And I think it's really, like in any industry, competition makes everyone up their game a little bit. So, when I was a kid, there was probably 3 options in the town I lived in for dentists, and now there's probably 25. So the more dentists that come in and they're offering new things and making the experience more pleasant, the better everybody kind of has to up their game to deliver on that kind of service to people. And it really makes a huge difference. We tell our clients all the time that, everything that we can do externally, digitally marketing your practice is secondary to just delivering an amazing experience to people who come in. And as you know, if you call someone today to buy something and you have a terrible experience right up to the point where they ask you to buy, you're not going to do it. But if you have a great experience and, this doctor is standing in front of you telling you that you need to do X, Y, Z to maintain a healthy smile, you're going to say, whatever you say, doc, this has been lights out. I've enjoyed every minute of it. So I'm going to trust what you say.
These are some good insights that we need to up our game with competition and the number of choices, and just add some interior decor to your dental office. Make it a pleasant place to be, because you can be spending say best case, you're spending all these ad dollars, getting all these people in. If it's the first and last time going there, if it's a scary place to go, if they're having a miserable time, then you have a leaky bucket, right? And it's like, sure, the look of the inside and all that and the friendliness, it's not everything, but it's probably what many people need to be working on. And so as far as like the transformation you provide, like what's the typical before and after? Like what is someone's dental office like when they start with you, and like what kind of like quick, maybe not quick and easy, but like what's the low hanging fruit to change to make things better that you usually see?
So, we really do focus heavily on the external marketing for them. But over the years, we've kind of seeped into the practice a little bit. And one of the big things is on the telephones. If, as in your marketing, you can send thousands of leads to a business. And if they're not doing a good job of warmly welcoming those people to become patients of the practice, then that really is just wasted money. So we focus a lot on the external marketing. We focus on the telephones and making sure they're doing a good job of bringing people in. But there are some other things that we have, like recommendations for our practices on the internal patient experience. And we have a little training that we walk them through about, here's all the best practices that we've seen. And it could be, little tactics, we use that phrase a lot, that it costs the same to give a bad experience as it does to give a good experience. And that's almost always true. Like if you just walk up to somebody and smile while you're talking to them, you're already delivering a better experience than if they walk into your dental office, you're on the phone and you stick up your finger to tell them to not talk to you yet, So little things like that. But there's also just little touches that I went to my own dentist about a month ago, and it was a terribly rainy, terrible rain day, like terrible weather. And they said, hey, we have complimentary umbrellas here. Why don't you take one on your way out? And of course, it had their logo on it and their branding on it. So wherever I take that umbrella now, everyone's going to say, hey, is that your dentist that gave you an umbrella? Like, oh, yeah. I was in there, it was raining, so they gave me a free umbrella as I walked out the door. So I have, with this little tiny touch, they now have me discussing them outside of their office and in a way, indirectly recommending them to people that I meet, which is just little things like that can go so far into making people not only want to go there, but to keep coming back and keep recommending friends and families. And, we always say, like, if we use a Google ad to bring a new patient in, the practice should be looking at that new patient and thinking, like, now how can we get this person to bring 3 more people in for us? And the best way to do that is really just knock their socks off with an amazing patient experience.
I love it. There's a lot of little changes that can be made to think about. I love the umbrella story and just this kind of mindset that, like, okay, well, we run these Google ads and say it costs this amount to get someone in, but that we can then multiply what we get back if we say, like, okay, well, we get them in and sure, it's like this cost per acquisition, but then if they're also a referral source, then that can also be really amazing. It can be something that pays off. And so, you mentioned things like Google ads. Are you seeing, like, is there a place where dentists should be hanging out? Is there like a number one most effective marketing channel for dentists?
I definitely think Google Ads is it for sure. And that's by design. I mean, Google as a company, I think the last number I saw for 2023 was 77% of their total revenue is from those ads. So they want people clicking on those ads. They're always going to make it very easy for people to click on those ads. We're even seeing now that Google's launching this new AI search on their search engine results page, where now in addition to the ads and the map and the organic results, you're also going to have this thing pop up that says, "Would you like to read our AI assisted search?" And it's going to be a thing they just pull information and show you an answer to whatever you typed in. So they're even saying now they're going to put ads in there. So they're putting ads all over the page. So it's what we have found to be the most trustworthy. People who are going to Google and searching for a dentist tend to be what we call high intent people. They're not someone who's just searching, kicking tires and saying, hey, how much is a dental implant? They're saying dental implant dentist near me. We know that person is not only looking for your service, but they want it now. So that's the best place we've found to get a really solid return on the investment. And, we always encourage, there's definitely costs associated with that. You have to pay for these ads to run on these platforms. But, we always just encourage our clients to look at the investment, not the costs. If I was going to dump $5,000 into the stock market and get $30,000 back that month, I'd be pretty happy with that return. I think anyone would. So I definitely feel like it is the highest ROI channel that we work with. And the things that we like about it too is that it gives us so much control that, we had cases where, we'll take on a client and we'll launch their ads on a Tuesday at noon, and they already are getting calls on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, the phone's ringing, people are finding them where they would not have found them the day before. So we get that fast response with it. But we also have cases where, clients will call us up and say, hey man, my hygienist quit, or we're trying to hire a new hygienist and my hygiene is full for 8 months. So you're sending me people who are asking me for a cleaning appointment, and I'm having to tell them, I'm sorry, but we can't see you till next April. That's not what anyone wants to hear. So when we get that feedback, we can say, okay, great, no problem. We're going to stop running ads for that, and we'll start running ads for something else that you want to come through your chair, whether it be, Invisalign or something that the doctor is going to see the patient before, not the hygienist. So we have that level of control where we can pivot very quickly. We can change what we're doing. We can change our strategy, which, for traditional SEO, which I still believe in, and we still do, that's a much more, I always call it like trying to take the Titanic away from the iceberg. You're trying to turn the ship, but it's not turning as fast as you want it to turn. So that's why we really just love the dependability and reliability of running Google ads. We also do ads other places like Facebook, and we have challenges with those channels. We still use them, and we figured out ways around it. But because Facebook people and Instagram people tend to be lower intent, they just happen to be going to Facebook to see what their friends had for dinner that night or the night before. They're not necessarily looking for your service, but we pop an ad and they say, great, yeah, I want to go. But we just find a lot of those people tend to not show up for their appointments, whereas those Google people are much more reliable. They're looking for your service. We're meeting them where they want to be met, and then they're calling the practice and scheduling an appointment.
I love the high intent kind of awareness there. And when you explain it that way, it's almost like Google Ads is meant for dental marketing, right? Because like you say, like you think someone is searching like, I want a dental implant near me, cleaning near me. They're looking for that right now versus, well, Facebook, you target them based on like their existing likes and their behavior, and that's like more slow going. And so that's like, I know that Google Ads can be scary for people, but it's reassuring that you can just start and stop the fire hose. And it also makes sense that say some dental practice, if they've been frustrated with Google Ads before, maybe they've been trying it themselves. Maybe they went with some agency that maybe wasn't that experienced with dentists and they just didn't know what they were doing quite yet. And so if it hadn't worked, there's all these reasons why that might not be. And so, and also, when you do a Google search, it's amazing how many of the results are ads, right? They're on the sidebar. There's like 3 or 4 up top. They're all over the place. And I'm always amazed that any kind of I don't know, like civilian or like my wife or someone who's not like an internet marketer, they don't even realize that they're ads because they're still relevant, right? They're still relevant. It doesn't really stand out differently than the organic result. And so it blends right in. People still respond to them. That's what Google wants, right? Google wants people to respond to the ads and even maybe respond to the ads more than the organic searches because that's what makes Google's money, right? You mentioned like 73% there. And so say some dental practice goes to you, they run some Google ads, They get some leads coming in. You mentioned about kind of like the phone etiquette and the experience. Like, where are the missing hangups when it comes to this process? Like, say someone runs an ad and something goes wrong. Like, do people miss out on like the follow up, the reminders? Like, where could this process potentially go wrong, but is maybe not immediately obvious?
Yeah, and you mentioned it really is. There's a lot of landmines, I would call them, in that process that have to be kind of worked out. The first one I would say is you even mentioned, like, if we see this a lot where a dentist saying like, "Oh, I ran Google Ads, but it just sent us a lot of people that we don't want." But for us, I mean, the best thing about those ads is that you have these negative keywords that you can input. So, if someone types in dental implant dentist near me, we want our client to pop up if they do dental implants. If someone types in the cheapest dental implant dentist near me, we do not want our client to pop up, because that's the type of patient that's just looking for a deal, a discount. They're not necessarily who we're looking for as a full value patient. So a lot of times when they say that, like, "Oh, we just kept getting people asking if we take Medicaid," we just realize that they haven't input the right negative keywords to prevent those things from happening. So when we start, we've got a curated list of like 250 negative keywords that we start with on day one, that we have seen over the years that people type in if they're not the type of person we want to end up as a patient in that practice. So that's the first thing. The second thing is definitely the website, the conversion process. We use redundancy a lot on our websites. So we put that call to action over and over and over again, to the point that clients will sometimes push back and say, "Why do you keep having this button pop up everywhere on this website?" And we do that just to make it so easy for someone to click it and then reach out to the practice. We're trying to make that conversion process as easy as possible for people, so that they almost don't even have to think about it to go ahead and reach out, which is our ultimate goal. If someone comes to your website and doesn't take an action, it does us no good. So we want them to either fill out the form or call or schedule online or whatever option you have there. Then the next step is that front desk person. Number one problem we see, unfortunately, so we instituted call tracking in our business probably about 8 years ago. And one of the reasons was that we would have two very similar dentists in two different towns, that one was having wild success with their campaigns and the other one was having very little success. And we realized that there was a step there that we weren't monitoring to see what was happening, which was what happens when that call goes through to the practice. So we started using tracking numbers and listening to calls. And the first thing that we would see is that calls weren't even being answered. I think the average dental practice in our data was 40 missed calls per month. Majority of those were during business hours. So it just meant that somebody was calling and they weren't answering the phone. So we work with our practices to, figure that out. Like, one client realized that she was missing all her calls from 8 to 9 in the morning until she came in at 9, and she realized that the employees that she was paying to be there were just in the break room having their breakfast. They weren't answering the phones like they were paid to do. There's other cases where, the front desk is just overwhelmed with other stuff to do. Like, they got patients coming in to check them in. They're calling insurance companies to validate insurance, and they just don't have time to pick up that phone. So that's the first step, is make sure that they're answering the phones. The second thing is really in the way that the phone is answered. We hear a lot of very just monotone. Someone says, "Hey, yeah, I'm interested in becoming a new patient at your practice." "Oh, okay. What insurance do you have?" That's not a welcoming question at all. Just to ask me, "How are you going to pay me?" If you called me and asked me for my service today and I said, "Okay, great, how are you going to pay me?" you probably wouldn't feel welcome as a new client or a new patient. So we really work on that with them to incorporate the sales process a little bit, to not just be warm and friendly and inviting, but to treat every one of those calls like what it is, which is a lifeline to that practice. It's money coming through the practice that benefits everybody. And the other big thing is just we hear a reluctance to sell. A lot of people look at that position and say, front desk is not here to sell. I'm just here to answer questions. But the reality is, everywhere in a dental practice, you have to not only be selling, but be selling the right way. People don't want to feel like they're being sold all the time. You don't want to go from zero to used car dealer in one day, but you definitely want to get to a point where you are incorporating sales in every step of that process in the practice. And we hear a lot. Clients will tell me like, "Oh yeah, one of my long loyal patients came in the other day with braces or Invisalign on their teeth." And I said, "Wait a minute, we do that here. How come you didn't do it with us?" And the person says, "I didn't realize you did that. No one's ever told me that." So these are all those things that, if you incorporate a sales mentality the right way into the practice, it's only going to boost your numbers, but also we've seen boost patient satisfaction because the patients here feel like they're being listened to, they're being heard, and they're being offered options for their own, even just cosmetic or whatever it is, they're being offered options. So that whole process, you mentioned the follow up, that's another huge piece where we feel like it just drops off. A lot of times, we always prefer to have someone call the practice versus fill out the form, because we know that they'll fill out a form and the practice will call them 10 times and they'll never answer their phone because they don't know who it is. But a lot of people will call once and then quit and just give up on it. We know that you have to stick with it. People in the age of smartphones, nobody answers the phone if they don't know who is on the other end. So it's important to stay with it, keep the follow-up going. And if they still don't respond after a number of tries over a couple of weeks, we always recommend putting them in some kind of a nurturing email clip where they just start getting emails from the practice, whether it's a newsletter or, testimonials from other patients, things like that. And you never know. You never know. And in our business, this happens. I will speak to a dentist in June of 2023. They will ignore me after that meeting and we will not hear anything. And then a year later, they come back and say, hey, I'm ready to go. Sorry about that. I just, other things popped up and I lost sight of this, but I'm in. Where do I sign? So definitely it's always important to stay in touch with people. You never know when they're going to come back and be ready to move forward with your business. So.
And the email sequence, it got me back with my dentist once. There was like the pandemic happened, and then I became a busy parent, and by that time it had been like maybe a year and a half, and I think they'd made some phone calls and sent some emails, and by that time I felt too guilty to even reply. I was planning on looking for another dentist in town, but then that was also something to get to, and then I think I was just getting those emails like maybe even like once every month or every 2 months. It wasn't even that many, but it was just enough to kind of, after a while, my feelings kind of settled themselves. And then when I was time to get back in the dental habit and be like, nothing's bad, but I should go get a cleaning, I was just like, hey, I saw like a week ago in my email inbox, you know what, I'll go and I'll call and make the appointment. I was right back into the swing of things. And so you're right. It does happen. And so it seems like a lot of your mindset here, as far as like the funnel mentality, is what's the bottleneck? Where are people dropping off? Like you mentioned about like the negative keywords with the Google ads, that's huge, right? People search for like dental service, but if they search Medicare, maybe we want to exclude those people because those are not our people. And then a lot of in there is just the regular human error, right? That these, especially these automation guys, they want to send somebody to a form because, it all runs itself. And people like you and me say, sure, but if there's 10 questions on a form, they might go and just look at it and quit. But as opposed to if someone calls in and the person on the other end fills in a few of those things and kind of talks them through with it, then they won't drop off. So these are all, it's obvious after the fact, right? It's obvious from the outside looking in to see how things went. But then if someone is caught in the middle of it, if they say, either my dental practice is struggling or it's doing okay and it could be better, or maybe they have some FOMO or some jealousy about that other dental practice got the guys Invisalign, why not me? Then maybe there are just some things that could be looked at. And so what's the next logical step with that? Like, does your company kind of look and do an audit or do a phone call if someone says like, okay, I like some of these ideas, but I know that if I left it up to myself, then I'd never get into even 10% of what we're talking about. How do they contact you and get the process started?
Yeah, so we do I'm sure it's very common in our industry, but we do a free strategy session. And I really do look at that as an opportunity to not just try and sell them on our service, but I always try to walk away from those calls. I do it myself, so I don't just have a salesperson that handles that for us. But I always look at it as an opportunity to deliver value. So I tell folks, you're going to get some value out of this call, even if, and it happens. I've had dentists we talk to, and I give them all these things. Here's what I would do if I was you. And they will take it and say, all right, well, I'm locked in a contract with my current marketing company, so I will take these to them and see what they can do. Great. I hope it works out for you. I hope we never hear from you again. But when that contract's up in 6 months, if you need our help, we're here for you. So first thing is to set up a strategy session. We'll have a discussion about your practice. We are also big on making sure that it's a two-way fit. There's some cases where we're not the best solution for a doctor. Maybe they're looking for something that we don't do or something like that. So want to make sure it's a good fit. And then the next step is we just align on the solution we want to provide. what they need the most, and we take it from there.
Wonderful. And so how does someone get that kind of strategy session scheduled? What's the website? What's the URL?
Yeah, it's New Patients with an S, FLOW, so newpatientsflow.com. If you just are Googled Flow New Patient Marketing, will pop right up at the top. But yeah, go to the website. There's plenty of, we have portfolio work up there, so you can see some other websites and stuff we've done. We have a ton of client testimonials from existing real people, which is always a big thing, or actual real clients. And I even will encourage people to, if you see a dentist name on our website, call them. Just call them up and ask them about their experience with us. But if you go to that website, there's a huge button on the top. You can't miss it. Just schedule a free strategy session, and it opens up into the calendar. You can pick a time that works best for you, and then we'll take it from there.
Very cool. And then I also want to make sure we have a little bit of awareness on the podcast that you have going on. So, tell us about your podcast, what it does, and who should listen to it.
Yeah, we're very excited about that. So the goal of that, we call it the Dental Flow Podcast. And the goal is not really to do all things dentistry. So it's not just marketing related. Obviously, if I'm doing a solo episode, that's probably what we're going to talk about, either marketing or patient experience, or the things that I'm familiar with. But we're also bringing in, having done this for a long time now, we have a lot of good relationships with other people who are in the dental industry and different, CPAs, attorneys, real estate professionals, things like that. So the goal is to also bring those folks in to provide insight that's actionable insight for doctors and dentists to use in their practice every day, whether it be related to, to real estate, or related to insurance, or whatever that topic is. The goal is not just to be about marketing. And we're even going to be doing some stuff where we interview some of our own clients that we've seen do these things really well. Like, we've had clients that were, grew from 1 to 6 locations, and they did it through really applying like amazing patient experience principles. So we're going to interview those guys as well, and really just try to make it a very good go-to source of information of all things business for the business of dentistry.
Exciting. And it's very much needed, right? Because there's so much information out there, and many times we say, I thought I already went to school. I thought I already learned this stuff. And then 5-10 years pass, and then everything's changed, right? With SEO, with social media, with traffic, and it can be really overwhelming, and it can feel like you're getting yourself into a job that you didn't want, right? Because you say, I just wanted to be a dentist, just wanted to run a dental practice. Now I have to learn like all this like search engine optimization, and the fun can come back when you listen to a podcast such as Ben's, because you can hear these different stories, and you're not necessarily having to get all this step by step. You just pick up some new insights, or you figure out like, I was having a blind spot about this, or, I should be looking into like the better call process with my dental practice. And so a podcast is a great way to like stay up to date on what your industry is doing and what you should be doing without having to go back to school. And that way, when you are looking to add someone to your team, such as Ben or someone else, you're kind of a little bit more educated. You're, just enough to be dangerous about what the possibilities are. And so that podcast is the Dental Flow Podcast with Benjamin Suggs. But where we really want you to go is to go to newpatientsflow.com, click on that orange button to schedule your free strategy session. And as we're wrapping up our conversation here, Ben, people going to newpatientsflow.com, do you have a fun quote or lesson to share with us to really wrap things up, inspire us, send us on our way? What comes to mind as far as a fun quote or lesson?
Yeah, I have it over there in the office here, but I attribute it to Steve Jobs, but I'm not sure if he was the actual first one to say this. But our favorite quote to really keep in mind is simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. So one of the things that we have to constantly remind ourselves is, simplicity is not a bad thing, because people are inundated with so many messages out there, their phones, their computer screens, that the simpler we make it for people, putting the easy button on there, the more likely they're going to do what you want them to do. And I think we get confused. I know our clients will push us like, no, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. But if we can take all those things and synthesize it and simplify it down to a few basic points that somebody can understand in about 4 seconds, then we've won. Our chances of winning that patient go way up. So we try to keep that in mind in everything we do, that just because something looks simple and it's not overly cluttered that means it's genius. It doesn't mean it's lazy or we're just taking the shortcut way. It's actually harder to simplify something than it is. If I want to send a sales presentation out to a potential new client, I can throw 18 bullet points on a page, or I can simplify it down to like the 3 or 4 things I really need them to know. And that's what we really try to focus on with our clients, is simplifying their value proposition, simplifying their message. So that's definitely our favorite quote here.
That's huge. And I love that quote. It's like how Abraham Lincoln, I think, said, if I had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter. And like a confused mind never buys. So it's up to us to make things, even though they might look simpler to us, make them even simpler. And your first step towards that simplicity and that better marketing and messaging is to go to newpatientsflow.com. And we'll see you there. And thank you very much, Ben, for showing up and giving us all sorts of advice and ideas, glimpses into your mindset, what we should be doing. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.